What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode. Christmas Day Steelers were their third straight loss. It's just been bad. The last three games have been bad. The game on Christmas Day especially was very, very bad. And you can definitely feel that there's a tipping point with this team. You can feel it with the frustration on players. You can feel it with the coaches. With one game left and playoffs looming, they need answers right now. You listen to what players are saying after the game. Even Mike Tomlin started his post-game press conference. Well, that sucked. Yes, coach, it did. It sucked for us fans at home too. Let's get this straight. Coach Tomlin has a hand in how the team performed, and he has to answer to all the critics. Valid critics, might I add. However, as fans, we expected better and we got a pile of nothing. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into my thoughts about the last three games. I'll give you my knee-jerk reaction, or what I call my gut reaction for Christmas Day loss. I'm going to talk about what transpired, winners and losers, and who needs to go into a corner. I know for so many fans the sky is falling. A similar story from the past of late-season collapse. After that pile of coal in our stockings, the dust has settled. You are what your record says you are. Let's talk about what has really happened to our beloved Steelers, what has really gone wrong, why, and well, can the Steelers right the ship? And should we expect them to right the ship? I have two winners and a bunch of losers, but today I will highlight 9 of them. So with no further ado, let's get this show on the road. Winners. I should have put this grown man on the list last week, even in the loss after the Ravens, but I didn't. This week I'm not overlooking him again because he had a great game. That would be Jaylen Warren. So Jaylen Warren finishes the day 11 carries for 71 yards, a 6.5-yard average, and a 22-yard long. He also added 5 catches for 41 yards on 6 targets. Well, add everything up, folks. That's over 100 all-purpose yards. He is a difference maker. I was watching some of the game with my son and wife and my younger kids on Christmas Day. I said this to my son, man, I don't need to see Najee right now. I need to see Jaylen Warren. And well, why? Why don't you want to see? I said, Jaylen Warren is a better back right now. My son said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, he's faster, he is more elusive, he can run inside, he can run outside, he can catch the football, he can run routes, and he is maybe one of the best pass-protecting running backs in the NFL in terms of blitz pickup, knowing where to go, how to slide, how to stop potential blitzers from sacking the quarterback or pressuring the quarterback. Jaylen Warren, I hate to tell you this, folks, but for me, unless Najee Harris is dirt cheap next year, he's probably not going to be back. And so that means it's going to be Jaylen's show, it's going to be him, and they'll probably draft someone, or maybe they pick up a free agent running back somewhere. It's going to be him. I am actually looking forward to that. I think the Steelers are built better. The offense is built better for a running back who is more of Jaylen Warren's skill set. I don't know, but he is a winner for sure. He is a winner after this game. The next winner, and the only other winner, is the running game itself. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there saying there is nothing positive about this game today. Steelers sucked, and they got their behind whipped. Let me read the stat line first, and I'll tell you what the skeptics are saying. 31 carries, 202 yards, a 6.5-yard average. They did have a rushing touchdown, Russell Wilson, and a 22-yard long Jaylen Warren. A lot of people out there would say that 202 yards is inflated garbage time yards, mainly with Najee Harris in the fourth quarter. Chiefs are just playing prevent, so they're just running it on them. They had 156 yards on the ground before garbage time because I checked. I wanted to make sure. The Steelers did run the ball well. A lot of that had to do with Chris Jones not being in the lineup. Absolutely, it had a lot to do with Chris Jones not being in the lineup. He is an all-pro player, and when you don't have him, because he can play on the inside, he can play on the outside, it makes life a lot easier. But I thought that the offensive line, the interior three, actually had a pretty good game. Mason McCormick, Zach Frazier, and Isaac Sumalo. We'll talk about pass protection and some of the other issues more tomorrow, but those two guys, the push they got in the middle, I really liked what I saw. And so the running game, Jaylen Warren, and if I'm being completely honest, and I try to do that whenever I do these podcasts, those are the only two things that Steeler fans could look back on and say, at least they did that right, because at least they did that right. Not much else went right, and that's what's going to lead us into the losers part of this show. The losers part of the show, let's get right into it. The Steelers lost to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I gotta be honest with you, There's a lot. There's 10 losers we are going to talk about right now. So let's start this off with pass protection. Russell Wilson was sacked 5 times and he had 9 quarterback hits on him. I've got to be honest, yes, there was some internal pressure. I know that I gave the interior offensive line some props right there before the break, but the tackles, especially Dan Moore on the left side, Brer Jones on the right side, especially Dan Moore, I thought this was his worst game of the season. They looked like turnstiles at times. And when you're playing a team that is so technically sound as the Kansas City Chiefs and Spagnuolo knows how to orchestrate a defense, you got to be able to protect the quarterback. Russell Wilson was a little skittish in the first quarter. He settled in, started making some throws, but he just had those moments where everything around him just broke down. He just, again, sacked a lot, hit a lot, not what you expect from the Steelers at home against a team without their best defender in Chris Jones. So it's one of those situations where the pass protection I thought was very, very poor and not a good look for either tackle, especially Dan Moore. All right, let's go to the next one. Turnovers. I talked about this on my show when the Steelers played the Eagles, and I said how it's been since the New York Jets primetime game. That was a Sunday night affair. Russell Wilson's first start. That was the last game the Steelers did not turn the ball over. This is now a factual statement. The Steelers turned the ball over twice. This is one trend that continues, and this has been going on for at least the past 5 games. The turnovers are of the critical variety. That's the stat line. And when I say that's the stat line, you look at how things played out. We think Jaylen Warren scores a touchdown, Darnell Washington gets called for a hold, and then after that, Russell Wilson throws a very costly interception in the red zone. That's a critical turnover. People were saying that George Pickens was supposed to run a route that was going to pull the safety to his side and would leave Pat Freiermuth open. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm not about to sit here and lie and blow smoke and say that that was or wasn't, but I will say that these turnovers are critical. Then you get into the point where Pat Freiermuth catches a would-be conversion short of the sticks, and maybe some might say that the game was over before that, but still fighting for extra yards, coughs it up. It is again recovered by the Kansas City Chiefs. And so when you look at this also, I mean, my gosh, we'll talk about the defensive takeaways. I'll hold that for now, but the turnovers are an ongoing and growing issue with this team, and they just can't seem to get out of their own way. I have mentioned the razor-thin margin for error for the Pittsburgh Steelers against good competition, which, by the way, in the playoffs, they're going to be facing good competition. That razor-thin margin, you can't turn the ball over, you just can't, and they can't seem to stop turning the ball over. Steelers are a team built by winning the turnover battle. Let the defense control the amount of points scored by the opponent, but the last games, the defense is deflated. Let's go to the next one. You know, while the Steelers are turning the ball over more, the pass rush is absolutely not getting home. Last week against Baltimore, they had 1 sack that was a strip sack of Alex Highsmith on Lamar Jackson. Other than that, they didn't touch him. Patrick Mahomes, 0 sacks in this game, and only 2 quarterback hits. Now I get it, they were getting the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands quickly. They're not giving the pass rush time to kind of, rally the troops, and he's back there holding it. They don't want him to take those hits, I understand that. But that also means that the secondary is not holding up. We'll talk about them shortly, but the pass rush, when you're talking about Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, where's Nick Herbig? TJ Watt's a little banged up, Alex Highsmith playing great, I think he's playing some really good football right now, but TJ Watt's banged up. This is where you'd expect Nick Herbig to come in and have some of the splash we saw earlier in the season. He's not getting it done, and for some reason the Steelers made Preston Smith inactive. I remember asking why was he inactive. It's probably because he doesn't play special teams, but still with TJ Watt not 100%, I was shocked that they didn't have him active in this game. The pass rush absolutely finds their way on the loser list. Let's go to the next. The defensive secondary. So the Kansas City Chiefs had the following stat line for their receiving core: 29 catches, 320 yards, and 11-yard average. They caught 3 touchdowns, had a 49-yard long reception, and 38 targets. This Steelers defensive secondary, and if you listen to what the players said after the game, they were furious, and they talked about how, if one player doesn't do their job, everything else falls apart. And no one would say who that one player is, and there's a lot of people out there guessing. Some are thinking Cam Sutton. I mean, he let Kelsey run past him and was a wide open touchdown. I don't know who they're referring to, but it is a problem. The Steelers have these situations, and offensive coaches know this because it's on film. And when I say they have these situations, these coaches are looking at, okay, if we motion this player into a trip set on this side, they struggle to identify what to do. And what does that equate to? Someone is wide open. You saw it last week with Isaiah Likely. You saw it last week with Mark Andrews. You saw it this week with Travis Kelce, the biggest name tight end in the NFL. You lose track of him? I don't understand that. We'll get to that again later. But the defensive secondary for the Steelers is awful right now. And a lot of it comes down to preparation and communication, two things they're not doing well. Let's go to the next loser. The red zone defense. All right, Ben, but don't break defense philosophy is not working. They gave up 4 touchdowns in 5 trips. 4 for 5. The Kansas City Chiefs were 4 for 5. And so, man, like you want to know what the issue was, but the issue was blatantly clear. The bend don't break was bend and break, not bend don't break. The red zone defense it wasn't there. There were times in this game where a 3rd and 4 almost felt like an automatic conversion. Teams are so aggressive that a 3rd and 4 should be treated as if they have 2 more plays to get it, but it felt like they were just picking their spots. 3rd and 4, okay, we'll dial up this play. Xavier Worthy goes in motion. We hit him on a quick little out. He's going to catch it. He's going to turn it upfield. He might turn that into a much bigger gain, but we're at least going to get 4. And if they run zone, Travis Kelce finds the soft spot, boom, pitch and catch, move the chains, and we continue to just bleed the clock, bleed your hopes, bleed your dreams off the game. Red zone defense, absolutely bad, horrible. Let's go to the next loser. Anyone who was tasked with covering a tight end. So the Kansas City tight ends had the following stat line. 3 players, 11 catches, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns scored. This was reminiscent of back in the day, we're talking early 2000s, late 2000s, where the Steelers would go up against a team like the Patriots and we'd all hear the same thing, right? What was that? Oh, they can't cover a tight end. Steelers can't cover a tight end. And it wasn't until Ryan Shazier came that people started to say, okay, now maybe they can start to cover them because they're athletic enough. Whatever the case was, Patrick Queen didn't have a great game, but I don't think Peyton Wilson had a great game. No one that was tasked with covering a tight end had a great game. But when you're also having miscommunication issues, and again, how do you not guard Travis Kelce? I don't get that. If there's one player on the Chiefs, you're like, okay, that's him. Mark up, make sure someone's on him at all times. If Juju Smith-Schuster, who's a 3rd weapon for them, gets you 4th weapon if you count Kelce, then, okay, it was the 4th weapon. This is not that. It's awful. And Dante Jackson, a cornerback in absolute trail position on Justin Watson, a tight end. Come on, people, like, that is a damning statement. Let's continue. The next loser is the red zone offense. The Steelers go 1 for 4, 4 trips into the red zone. They score 1, they convert 1, and when you think about how everything worked in the red zone, it just was bad. You know, you think you have a touchdown that ends up coming off the board due to a holding call on Darnell Washington. You have a turnover in that drive. It was bad. This is, again, we are saying some of the same things over and over again. And what I mean by that is that this is not a new issue. The red zone defense, give or take the week, I mean, it has been an issue, but red zone offense has been an issue all year long, and it continues to be. We have 3 losers left. The next loser, defensive takeaways. So this is something the Steelers have done all year. They've always taken the football away. They have been great at taking the ball away, but those takeaways have started to dry up. Go back to Philadelphia, they got 2 of those early takeaways. They got a fumble recovery off of Jalen Hurts and a recovery off of Cooper DeJean. Then you go to Baltimore, they got 3 fumbles on the ground and they couldn't recover 1. Now they did get Minkah Fitzpatrick's interception, but other than that, the takeaways have dried up in a bad way. They did not get a takeaway in this game. They caused a fumble early in the game, weren't able to get it. And I'm not blaming the defense, I'm not blaming the special teams. When you get a fumble, when you cause a fumble, you have no idea where the ball's going to bounce. Mark Robinson puts his helmet right on the football, it ricochets off of somebody right to a Chiefs player. That is the epitome of how the ball bounces. But if the Steelers are going to win, whether it's next Sunday against the Bengals in Week 18, whether that's in the playoffs, which we know they're going to be guaranteed a playoff game and they're going to be playing in the first week. They have to take the ball away. And I mentioned the fumble, I think, in that special teams play. That's kind of as the ball bounces. But my gosh, Patrick Queen, when that ball got tipped up in the air by Cam Hayward and it's falling right into the breadbasket, right into his hands, you just got to pull that ball down and claim that interception. That would really turn the tide for the Steelers. Instead, they couldn't get the takeaway, and that equates to a 29-10 loss. All right, 2 more. Let's go to the next one. Coaching failures. This is a hot mess. I've had people tell me, well, Mike Tomlin, this was especially true after the Steelers lost on Thursday Night Football in Cleveland. Mike Tomlin's a coach that likes and needs to prepare. Okay, that's great, but it's really tough when the Steelers are the ones that are on the losing end on short weeks in Thursday Night Football. They knew so going into the Baltimore game, short week. Yes, they had to travel. John Harbaugh has his team ready. Mike Tomlin, not so much. Derrick Henry runs all over our defense. Next, you go to this game, the Chiefs are traveling, and they have 3 days to prepare. They never even really practice. They just do walkthroughs. They come out looking like, well, the Super Bowl champs, and the Steelers come out looking like they've never played the game before. The coaching is a hot mess. Whether you're talking about you're seeing and hearing J.J. Watt talk about how Darnell Washington and his pass blocking technique is a really risky gamble. Guess why he's doing that? That's probably what he's taught. And if he's not being taught that, why are they not telling him to not do that? You also are seeing in real time a secondary that looks lost and confused. That's on coaching and not getting them prepared. This is a hot mess, and I'm not about to absolve players. You got to go out and line. For instance, Connor Hayward. Connor Hayward negates a first down. His lining up off sides negates a first down. That was a thread to George Pickens on the sideline. I'm sorry, but that's not on the coaching staff. Connor Hayward, you are a professional football player. You are in the National Football League. You have to know to give a check with me with the side judge so that you're not lined up off sides. You can't always blame the coaches for everything, but for the majority of this mess that we all just witnessed on Christmas Day, that's on the coaching staff. Coaching failure is on the loser list. What the hell's happening to the offense that put 44 points against Cincinnati? Feels like it has been light years ago, so I don't get it, but this December, this was not an unleash hell moment by Mike Tomlin, but I'll tell you this, it sure felt like the same results. There you have it, folks, winners and losers. I hope that you enjoyed this. I will be back tomorrow, Friday, for another regular Friday morning episode. In the meantime, you know how we finish up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. Hope you had a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We'll see you on Friday's episode.